Good evening and salutations, my YNR fans. Gonna be honest. This episode didn't work for me. It really didn't work for me. There was one part in this episode that started off a bit rocky, but then it got good in a way where I wouldn't sit there and say it got good, but um, I don't know how to sit there and say it was really good. You know what? Let's just talk about this part first, because I'm not really making a lot of sense so far. So Billy starts off with his podcast, and I'm not gonna lie, the minute he started off just asking these random questions, I was just like, uh, we're really doing that still again. Okay, bro, what do you got? And then he started talking about his daughter. I was like, oh, because it's a very, very sensitive subject. Always going to be a sensitive subject because a parent should never outlive a child. And he talked about the meaning that that it that it brought him, um, and how it took him to a dark place, but he remembered the good times, and he remembered just the fact of being able to love her, and how it kind of brung him out of it, and just a lot of stuff like that. So I thought that was interesting, you know, because he even said that even though he goes through therapy, there's still pain, and he doesn't feel like he wants to lose that pain, you know, like it's some sort of connective or something like that. Um, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not saying it to sound like I teared up, but I'm also not a parent too. So if you're watching that part, just it might be a bit heavy. Um, but I can see the beauty in what he was saying. I can see that. I can take that away from it. I think that's important for people. Watching that part is that, yeah, it is sad. It's very sad. It's very tragic. But if you can take something good from that, then it was worth it sharing his pain. Um, no, I'm not gonna lie. Honestly, to tell you the truth, at that point, it went downhill. I'm gonna say some things that's very unfavorable. That's a little mean because I've been known to do that from time to time. I am I'm not feeling this character. Not feeling this character. Ali, I'm not gonna lie, when I sat there and I wrote it, I was like, oh great, another Ali. Just as disappointing as the last one, if not worse. No, 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 no. No, the other Ali's still worse. The other Ali on Days of Our Lives is still worse. But she was annoying the living hell out of me. Now, I'm gonna sit there and try to play a bit of devil's advocate, so that way I won't come across as a total dick. But on one hand, she is still struggling with the loss of her father and her absentee POS of a mother, um, who clearly can't be bothered to sit there and help her daughter deal with this. She's well, it caught off guard, and she's still struggling with that. So I get the emotional pain behind her energy. I'll sit there and say Then she starts going on about, oh well, if you never, because she was meant to saying like, oh, I don't want to sit there and disgrace you by getting close to him, and if you didn't trust him, then why should I? And I was like, to be honest, that was probably the stupidest thing I heard all day. That was probably the most ignorant part I heard. No, screw it. The stupidest part that I heard. I get it. Again, she's going through this emotional roller coaster. She lost her dad, and she doesn't know him. I get that. But to sit there and say, oh, well, because my dad didn't trust you, then I shouldn't trust you either? Really? You're not a kid. You're not a kid. And on top of that, and I get that he's dead, and I probably shouldn't, well, granted, you don't really sit there and speak ill of the dead, but your dad was a jackass, and the way that he handled it was extremely immature. And this is something that Tracy said when she was talking to Jack, is that a relationship is a two-way street. Like Jack isn't there blaming himself for not really getting no chemo his last days or whatever. Tracy was like, listen, this isn't all on you, which is not, but she's going on the word of her dad, off the belief of her dad, because her dad didn't want to think get close to Jack. But her dad was a jackass for the way he handled things. And, if you were a teenager, cool. You're a grown ass man. And it's not there watching Jack sit there and read those letters and that pain and that heartache could have been avoided if he would have bothered to sit there and reached out. He even said in his own letter, well, I know it's the right thing to do, but I just can't bring myself to do it. You're a grown ass man. Like, I'm sorry, but that responsibility falls on him. I mean, the way he left Jack and everything like that, that was on him. And now his daughter is picking up on that same idiotic energy. So that woman just really annoyed me throughout that whole scene. And yeah, there's a scene towards the end of a person standing above her, because Jack still doesn't know who is sending those texts, and at this point he's so emotionally drained that when Phyllis says, I still want to sit there and know who it is, Jack is just like, you know what, listen, let's just kind of take a beat for a minute. Talks to Tracy, informs Tracy um, about this Allie character. I am trying not to go hard on her. Um, she's this and she's that. She's apprehensive, and Tracy's like, "Don't get your hopes up." And yeah, and again, yeah, he reads through the letter again, and yada yada yada. He also thanks Phyllis a couple of times, and he comes back because he's still jet lagged or whatever, and he gets another text from I think he gets another text. I know he got the text the first time. He was like, "You shouldn't have left so soon. You should have left her so soon. You left too soon," or something like that. I'm like, what are you, Jigsaw? Like, what are you doing? I'm not gonna lie. If it turns out to be chemo, I'm like, bro, let's not do my best not to sit there and judge people as far as what they like and what I don't like, because it's always very interesting to understand what people like about either a certain character, a certain storyline, because it always gives me a new perspective. It definitely does help. It seriously does, as far as my reviews and just in general. Um, with that being said, I'm gonna be honest. If this jackass chemo is alive and is sending all these messages, I'm like, is this the payoff that all the Jack fans are sitting there waiting for? Because I know somebody said that, and granted, if you like this stuff, that's great as far as the Jack storyline. It didn't hit for me, but, it's, if it's good for somebody else, then that's cool. We all look at these soap operas and these characters differently, and that's what makes it very interesting. Um, But I'm gonna sit there and wonder if that is the payoff or that's part of the he's doing that's behind the Texas. Like, come on, really? How long has this show been on for? This is what we're doing now. I think her name was Joe. I'm not gonna lie. It was Billy's mom. What's her name down? Ah, her name was Joe. I was like, and Barley. I'm not gonna lie. I almost didn't even feel like Smith looking at it because I was like, oh, it's Billy's mom because it just didn't. I mean, here's the thing. All Joe does is pretty much more or less pressure Davon into merging the companies. After sitting there practically talking his ear off, um, I don't know if he called Lily or Lily came over, but long story short, he was like, all right, we're going to merge the companies. Okay, cool. Um, I, I don't know why I should care, but okay, whatever. Um, and, Amanda came back and she just wanted to make sure that Lily wasn't pressuring him. Like, I mean, granted, he was like, no, ultimately it is my decision. Like, yeah, it was your decision, but you got pressured by Lily in the beginning. You got pressured by Joe. So, I mean, I don't know the character too well. I can imagine this guy doesn't do something that he doesn't want to do, you know? So, all right, cool. They're joining companies. Amanda and Phyllis talked. Phyllis was not there giving. Well, Phyllis was not there talking about Jack as far as because Amanda was like, did anything happen between y'all as far as like y'all getting back together and you saw a romance or anything like that? And Phyllis was like, nah, it wasn't that type of trip. Then he said something like, oh, their relationship has leveled up or whatever, and it may not be a romance, but it's something. I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but I mean, it's soap operas, and more or less, we're may not be me, but the fans are about the romance. So what are we doing about that? You know. Um. Anyway, they had their talk. It didn't really go anywhere. Um. Billy and Lily. Seriously, Billy and Lily. I've been thinking about that for quite a while. Even when I sit there and write it down, it's like Billy and Lily, Billy and Lily. It's like you had to name her. Whatever. Um. Anyway, they get back home. They talk about their news. Billy says that now Billy says something that was kind of interesting. Billy was like, his podcast went a lot better. The meditation definitely helped, and he felt like he, um, put out something really good. And I could relate to that. I can relate to that. For the past couple of videos, I felt like, GH ones or whatever. Hopefully these, but it's hard to describe. But when you feel like you're kind of in a zone and you're just talking about stuff and you really feel like you're just kind of nailing almost like every different bullet point. I mean, you're not perfect, but you're kind of nailing every different point. You're kind of getting all that stuff out there. There's a sense of accomplishment. So when he was talking about how, well, he felt like his podcast was, I was like, you know what? I can relate to that. And Lily talked about merging the companies and, they're happy about that. So that's cool. Um, Now it was kind of interesting because Davon was like, I think he talked about another experience as far as a merger or working with family and didn't really end well. And Lily was like, no, 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 I don't really see that being a problem. I don't really see that happening. I'm like, well, that sounds nice that you don't see it happening as far as y'all two not getting into it or families not sitting there clashing, but that could be a possibility. And of course, Lily was like, well, if I do, if it does happen and, whatever, then, I'll sit there and step down. I was like, really? It just seems like she's not really looking at this from a realistic approach. She wants this merger to happen so much that she's like, no, 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 everything's gonna be fine. Don't worry about it. I just don't really see that happening as far as us running the problems. Okay, that's a nice thought. In the real world, it just I feel like it was a lot of tunnel vision what I heard, but whatever, they're gonna do it, and let the chips fall where they may. And I'm not gonna lie, that stuff does start to happen, and be like, hey, Lily. Remember you had that conversation with Avon about how stuff is just not gonna, you don't really see any problems moving forward, and stuff really got bad. You would happily step down. Yeah, good times. I think that's about it. Like I said, this episode didn't really do much for me. Except for the one part with Billy's podcast, surprisingly. Other than that, it just again, it didn't hit for me. But if you liked it and you enjoyed it, please tell me why. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. Be safe, and I will see you in the next video.